What's with this nightmare version of Yoshi, or how about this unsettling Mario dry bones creature? Well, these are the creepiest cut Mario characters that were removed for unknown reasons. For example, there's this unused variant of the noknok enemies from Mario Wonder. It's a lot like the normal ones, but instead has a red color to it with a single red tooth. Was it supposed to be like dripping blood from this tooth or something? I don't know. But it's pretty well the same as the original enemy, just being able to spot you from a longer distance. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because things will only get creepier and weirder from here on out. Like, look at these fish enemies that were cut from Mario Galaxy 2. Now, I don't think they were supposed to attack the player, they were likely just meant to add detail to the world, but look at their design. They have massive teeth relative to their small bodies, and blank white eyes that just stare at you. It really makes me wonder what kind of water levels these were originally intended for. And while we're talking about Mario Galaxy, why don't we go back now and look at the original one. Here we find an interesting unused enemy called Tetu Curry, translating to Iron Goomba. This is a jet black variant with these creepy bright yellow eyes. Based on the game files, it appears this was meant to be a stronger enemy type that was immune to spin attacks, mainly because it completely lacks a damage animation for them. It's easy to see why it was cut though. We already have Goom beetles, which use metal helmets for protection. So presumably, the Tetu Curry was just an early concept for this same mechanic, but was eventually scrapped because the developers preferred the Goom beetle design. Now, if you didn't know, in the Paper Mario series, there are atomic boos and there are dark boos. And originally, they were supposed to fuse together to create the dark atomic boo enemy that never made it into the final game. This creature was actually going to appear in both Super Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. By the looks of it, it seemed to be a pretty menacing foe, so I'm glad I never ended up having to face that thing, as his attacks look to have been pretty darn massive and powerful. Heading back to the main series now, with Mario Odyssey, let's look at a scrapped enemy with a bizarre internal name of Corn Boy. Besides having a name that doesn't seem to have too much to do with the character, this blocky entity likely wasn't meant for the final game. Watching him in motion might explain why. He's a capturable enemy who can face down, launch across the map, or even fly for a bit. It really feels like the developers might have just been using this guy to test physics, since it's hard to imagine many other uses for him. It doesn't seem like Corn Boy was intended to be frightening, he's just two blocks with eyes and a mustache, but that facial hair can look a lot like a distorted smile, so if you stare at it for too long, your imagination may take over. Now, before we get into the really weird finds like the skeletal Mario enemy, let's quickly look at a few other cut enemies first. And you may want to subscribe too, because I heard Skeleton Mario doesn't take too kindly to people who don't. Now, Mario World actually has a fascinating amount of cutout enemies. First up are these really odd-looking dinosaurs. The most striking thing here is simply their size. Mario World is filled with prehistoric creatures, but the scale of these guys seem to be much larger than anything else we see. It makes you wonder if they might have been able to insta-kill Mario with a single bite. Ugh. Next is a surprisingly unsettling design for the original sea urchin enemies. It suggests Nintendo might have been still experimenting with the art style, because before settling on the cartoony look, they tested this pitch black sprite with two white eyes staring right at you. Yeah, I think I'm glad they decided to change that design for the final game. Many people say that Paper Mario Sticker Star suffers from a lack of unique enemies, with developers often going for safer designs. However, a lost trailer, only recovered about a year ago, shows us a glimpse of something that looks much more creative and terrifying. It's a bony fish that appears similar to other skeletal enemies, yet it plays out very differently. Upon taking damage, it multiplies instantly, splitting into a group of clones with exposed teeth and red eyes. A single fish is frightening enough, but suddenly facing 15 of them at once, I think I might just choose to run away. When you think of Mario Party 7, the word unsettling is probably not one that comes to mind. Cause it's just a fun game to play with friends. It has bright visuals, playful music, and what is that? Yes, we have another creepy fish. Buried in the game's files is a full 3D model of a robotic creature with sharp teeth and wonky, unnerving eyes. It's simply labeled M787.bin. This aquatic creature was found in an unused microphone minigame where you guide a mechanical Cheep deeper and deeper underwater to avoid obstacles. We don't know exactly what M787bin's purpose was. Perhaps it was just an additional threat in this minigame, or maybe something far worse. Even though Mario 64 was made in 1996, there are still secrets in the code that remained hidden for decades. In July of 2020, nearly 25 years after its release, an enemy known as Hopper was finally unearthed, complete with a model and animation. This green, faceless grasshopper can be seen, well, hopping around. So for many people who aren't exactly fond of insects, let's just say we got lucky. I can't say I'd want to see this giant bug chasing me down in any of the corridors in Peach's castle. Fans theorize that it was removed in favor of the money bag enemy, which also leaps to attack you. In the end, Nintendo might have just preferred the money bag's design over a giant green bug. There's an enemy in Super Mario RPG that doesn't even have a model in the game's data. Only pre-release screenshots and leftover animations remain. This is Saban, a massive cactus featuring a pacifier and blank white eyes. The developers may have replaced him with the artichoker, as the two seem to share nearly identical attacks. It's unknown exactly why this change was made, but looking at the designs, it makes sense. The artichoker is pretty basic, whereas Saban looks like something you'd run away from just to escape those soulless white eyes. When playing Super Paper Mario, there is nothing people dread more than accidentally touching a back Cursia. There are a few of these jelly-like enemies, and each gives you a different status effect. The Reversia inverts your controls, the Tech Cursia prevents you from using special moves like the 3D flip, and then there's the back Cursia. If you make the slightest contact with one, you are instantly sent back to flip side, forcing you to restart the level from scratch. But honestly, that sounds manageable when you consider that a functional, unused enemy called the Dark Back Cursia exists in the code. Dark enemies appear in the Pit of 100 Trials as stronger variants, so imagine a Dark Back Cursia lurking on the later floors. One hit would completely wipe out your run. For a generally easy game, having an enemy that could erase an hour of progress in an instant was probably seen as just too cruel of a punishment. Now we come to one of the more strange Cut Galaxy enemies, with the weird name of Octopus Queen. What makes it so strange is, well, look at it. It's not an octopus at all. It's a very large piranha plant. The name really makes me wonder, would this thing have had weird tentacles? Was there some sort of transforming effect planned? It definitely causes some speculation. Unfortunately, it only has a few animations and no shading, so we really can't tell too much about what it was supposed to be. But that's not all, because we actually have a lot more strange findings hidden in the code of Mario Galaxy. Because here, people found a lot of unused enemies that were actually present in Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. For example, there's this bat enemy called Baki, and wow, just look at him. He is way creepier than the bat enemies we got in the final game. With those sharp fangs and glowing yellow eyes, geez, they were really trying to scare you here. Then there's this bee enemy, which is much more unsettling than the ones we're used to. I mean, why did they put red X's in its eyes? That usually signals that something is dead, so could this have been a zombie bee? A zombie? Okay, I'll escort myself out for that one. And finally, we have Coco Pig. Yet again, the theme here is the eyes. Just look at those glowing blue pupils. It all actually makes sense though, because the same branch of Nintendo developed both Jungle Beat and Mario Galaxy. So maybe they originally planned to port these enemies over, but realized they were just a little too intense for a Mario game. Who knows? Now let's head back to Super Mario World. While the Mario series isn't a stranger to sharks, did you know know there was files for one all the way back in this game? That's right, those underwater sections could have been a lot more stressful with this sharp-toothed beast chasing after you. You can tell just by looking at his face that this shark is not playing around. Interestingly, the design looks remarkably similar to the friendly dolphins found in the final game. This suggests two possibilities. Either the developers simply repurposed the shark sprite into the dolphin, or they originally planned to include both, but cut the shark to avoid intimidating younger players. We also have another unused shark enemy that is even more interesting. This one appears much larger and seems to function completely different. The sprites suggest it would hop or jump out of the water, meaning it might have been an early replacement for Blarg. Having a massive shark lunge at you instead of the dinosaur? Yeah, that would have made the water levels significantly creepier. Luigi's mansion is already filled with creeps, but there is one specific ghost that was left out of the game entirely, and it sounds terrifying. This spooky pink phantom features yellow eyes and fanged teeth. It would remain completely invisible until it was right on top of you, then suddenly appear with a burst of blue smoke and the text "Bah," in which Luigi would scream, crawl backwards in terror, and his HP would instantly be cut to 50. That's right, this ghost was apparently so scary that Luigi would lose half of his health in sheer shock. While the Basher never made it in the final cut, he may have inspired enemies like the Ceiling Surprise or the Sneaker from Dark Moon. But who knows? Or maybe the Basher is actually still in the original game, just staying invisible, waiting for his moment to strike. We all love Yoshi, everyone loves Yoshi, right? Well, in the beta of Mario 64, he might have looked like this. You can spot the major difference right away. The bottoms of his shoes are slightly orange. Okay, in all seriousness, obviously it's his eyes. He has these blank, white voids that honestly creep me out. It's unclear if this was intended to be the final model or just a placeholder for the final build. Who knows? This was one of the first 3D games, so maybe Nintendo didn't think eye details were that important yet. Either way, let's just say I'm very glad they gave him pupils in the final build. But that's not the only character that looked a lot creepier in the game's beta, since the penguins had the same fate. This time though, it's more likely that this was closer to the final design, since they made it into the actual 1995 build of Mario 64. And I guess that's how they originally were gonna look. The original model had very different facial expressions that completely changed how we would see this penguin. Most prominently, his wide open eyes that just give you this blank stare. That penguin has seen some things, and honestly, I don't want to know what they are. Super Mario RPG introduced a ton of unique enemies to the series, but digging through the game's files, we can see a lot of ones that didn't make the cut. First, there's the Harlequin. This enemy is based on the traditional jester archetype and served as an unused variant of the jesters found in the final game. But looking at it, I don't know about you guys. I don't think I could sleep at night if I saw that creepy smile staring at me from my bed. Then there's the Lumber, another spooky palette swap. He looks similar to the standard Stumpit enemy, but he's covered in a toxic looking blue sludge. It implies a much darker origin than the regular enemies, almost like he was mutated by radioactive waste. If you've ever been to an arcade like Chuck E. Cheese or Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, then you've probably seen the Mario Kart arcade cabinet. But little did you know, there may be something sinister hiding inside that cabinet. Mario Kart Arcade Grand Prix has plenty of unused models, ranging from racers to basic items like tires or umbrellas. But then there's a giant blooper simply labeled object_gesco.dat. While its design isn't that different from a standard blooper boss, it still doesn't make him any less unsettling. After years of the same repeated enemies in Mario games with the Koopalings, they finally changed things up in Odyssey and gave us the Brutals. They're wedding planner bunnies who really hate Mario. Unless you have lagophobia, it's safe to say the final designs aren't meant to be horrifying. However, some of their unused concept art is genuinely creepy. These early versions are washed out with dull, blue-tinted colors and possess completely soulless eyes. What's fascinating is that unlike the final Brutals, who don't really match their environments, these bosses were designed to represent specific kingdoms. You have a mermaid for Lake Lamode, a Sand Kingdom variant who looks like the Tostarinen NPCs and wears 3 sombreros for some reason, a humanoid bird chef for the Luncheon Kingdom, which is terrifying compared to the birdie version we got, and finally, a samurai design for Bowser's Castle. Honestly, I kinda wish Nintendo had stuck with these to give the game a darker, more uneasy vibe. And here we come to possibly the most mysterious and most creepy entry in this entire video, the Dry Bones Mario character. When data miners dug into the files of Mario Galaxy 2, they found an unused animation of Mario's skeleton breaking apart. Now, the skeleton model is used in the final game, but only briefly whenever Mario gets electrocuted, and this specific crumbling animation never appears. However, a user named Arum managed to make this skeleton Mario playable and found some interesting properties. For example, when he gets hit, he doesn't take damage. Instead, he breaks apart and then puts himself back together like a dry bones, which is exactly where that original animation was gonna be used. This skeleton Mario can't drown in water either. And I mean, just look at this sight. A creepy human skeleton just swimming around in a Mario game. It honestly gives me the creeps. So is this supposed to be a dry bones Mario enemy, similar to the Cosmic Clones? Or perhaps a cut skeleton power-up? Either way, this is some creepy cut content for sure. Let me know which one you thought was the most frightening, and I'll see you all later. And oh, by the way, try not to stay up too late before going to bed now. Peace!